Good Baltimore morning. Thank you, Raina, so much for having us once again. My name is Kira Wisniewski, and I have the distinct pleasure to be your host and co-organizer of Creative Mornings Baltimore. We're so excited to be coming to you live from Adorn Vintage Furniture on the ancestral land of Piscataway people in Baltimore City. I'm so glad that you could be here with us, albeit virtually. But before we get started, I want to say out loud, Black lives continue to matter. Creative Mornings Baltimore is one of over 200 chapters around the world, and what unites us is that we all believe that everyone is creative and everyone is invited. We are one of dozens of global events happening today. And we're happy to offer ASL from our friends Lauren and Anessa from HASA, supported by Eddies of Roland Park. They recently dropped their summer playlist, Reset and Refresh with the local global playlist, celebrating dynamic spectrum of Baltimore talent, curated by Karis Marcel and Ashley Alexander in partnership with Eddies of Roland Park. Ashley used to do the playlist for Creative Mornings Baltimore back in the day when we relaunched in 2019. So this playlist, it's fire, y'all. So it should be in the chat now. Also, we're dropping in the chat right now a link to our live captioning for our program through Otter AI. If we're truly going to live up to our mantra of everyone is invited, we're going to always try to increase our accessibility. This pandemic, you're over it, right? Yeah, us too. We're so grateful to be having you here via YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. I know that it's tempting to multitask right now and respond to maybe just an email here or there, but I'm hoping that you can spend the next hour or so with us uninterrupted. You deserve this. Give yourself permission to be here fully. We know that this can't replace that IRL event, but we also want to know what you think of today. So please slide into our DMs or shoot us an email at baltimore@creativemornings.com. And please tag us on social media wherever you are, Baltimore_CM. We'd love to see how this looks on your end. And of course, engage in the chat. We have Anita over on YouTube. And then here on Facebook, we have Sabina and April engaging in the chat. So, hi, y'all. Each month, we like to give get somebody special to do our Creatives Morning Manifesto, and we're really excited to give a little bit more shine on Anita. She's been engaging with you in the chat for months during the pandemic, and you probably saw her in the before times helping out at the live events. By day, Anita works at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. She believes in the power of community, people, places, and ideas that move us towards a better world. It is my great honor to invite Anita to read the Creative Mornings Manifesto. Yay!
Good morning. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work, and we are here to support you, celebrate you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others, in virtual hugs and digital high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Anita. And Creative Mornings Baltimore is 100% volunteer run. And we couldn't do what we do without this engine of generosity and our today's dream team of Mario, Winston, Henley, Sean, Sabina, Anita, and April. And this is also would be where we put the slides up of all of our sustaining partners, but we're going analog with the help of Alpha Graphics and April. She's doing so many hats today. I've said it many times before, but on a very personal level, one of the greatest things about Creative Mornings Baltimore is the opportunity to work with some of my favorite local businesses, including Adorn Vintage Furniture, HASA, White Tea, Local Color Flowers, Impact Hub Baltimore, Eddies of Roland Park, Maryland Art Place, infographics, and pixelated photo booth. We are dropping in the chat links that link to all of our wonderful sustaining partners, as well as folks that have been fortunate to work with since the reboot of our chapter last year. And if you can, we encourage you more than ever to really support them. If you can't monetarily support them, please consider writing a positive review online. Or if you've never had the privilege to use their goods or services, just follow them or like them on social media. We also want to shout out our global sponsors sponsoring all 200 plus Creative Mornings chapters, thanks to MailChimp and Skillshare. Hey. Creative Mornings Rotterdam chose June's Matriarchy theme, and Javiera Altena created the accompanying illustration. Okay, now let's get why we've all gathered this morning. Let's introduce our featured guest. Jo-Ann Enwezor is the founder of We Are Mod, a Baltimore-based gift shop that is on a mission to make the creative economy accessible to more artisans. The shop features a range of gifts sourced primarily from women and people of color, creating in communities across the globe. Prior to launching We Are Mod, Jo-Ann worked behind the scenes in corporate world building brands and leading creative campaigns. She's an event producer, maker, writer, and DIY enthusiast, a proud graduate of Howard University. Jo-Ann holds a BA in journalism. You can find We Are Mod on Instagram at We Are Mod. Creative Mornings Baltimore, please help me welcome Jo-Ann to the virtually hybrid stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes on my behalf. Thank you for inviting me to talk about this really big word, matriarchy. I think it's so dope that there are conversations about this word happening throughout the world, and I feel that vibration. It's so good. Thank you so much. So I come from a family of women. My grandmother had 7 siblings, 6 of them women. My grandmother had 8 children, 7 of them being women. There are 16 of us grandchildren and 14 grandchildren, and 18 of us are women. So if you were able to do that math really quickly, you know that there are double the amount of women in my family than there are men. And I say this because this relationship that I have to the word matriarchy is the relationship that I have with my family. So my grandmother, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about her. If you followed We Are Mod and me, you know that I talk about my grandmother all of the time, but I wanted to give you the longer version of her story today. So my grandmother, Jamaican, she came to the United States when she was in her 40s, and she came to make a better life for her and her family. I don't know if you can imagine leaving a country and coming to a space that is completely unfamiliar to you, leaving behind your children. My Aunt Annie was 5 at the time, so she was 5 years old. And you know, that level of bravery and sacrifice is something that I couldn't even imagine. I'm 42 years old right now, and I do not even like to sleep away from home on too many consecutive nights, so I just cannot imagine like weathering different weather, coming to a place with different norms and customs, and just sacrificing it in that way for your family. So my grandmother, she worked for rich white folks, and she did that tending to their homes, and essentially she was a maid, and she had to wear this white, crisp uniform. I didn't even realize, I'm wearing white right now. I didn't even realize that. Oh, look at that. It's like a little tribute to my grandmother. I didn't even notice that. So she had to wear this like white, crisp uniform. And, you know, to me, that's like a tool of oppression, because it is making sure that you are distinguished as the help. And, you know, what I want there to be no mistake is that my grandmother, she woke up and she chose liberation every single day. She worked 7 days a week. She worked during the holidays. She saved money with vigor. She was able to put down payments on homes. She was able to fund educations. She was able to buy us little pretty things when the money was, you know, there for us to, when she could afford the pretty little things for us. She cooked meals. She combed our hair. She was just a really great force in our family. And she remembered everybody's birthday. And when I would come home from Howard, HU, stand up. When I would come home from Howard, I would wake up in the morning and she'd be washing my car, which I just wanted to be clear, like I did not force my grandmother to wash my car because that sounds terrible, but she would be outside like hand washing my car. And so, she did the housekeeping thing for almost 30 years. And that is a long time, right? But one by one, she was able to get our family up here. And just for greater context, it took 10 years for her to get my mom, my own mother, up here. And so I don't know what you know about immigration and the immigration system, but it's a long process. You have to apply for visas, you have to wait, you have to do interviews. And she did that for 8 people, right? And so that type of sacrifice was not only, my grandmother's sacrifice, that's a sacrifice that many immigrant mothers, fathers did for their families. And so, my grandmother had a 6th grade education, and now, we're 3 generations deep in the United States. And I just am so grateful that she put all of that work into her family. And so when I think about the word matriarchy, I think about mutual aid. I think about mutual aid, but then also individualized solutions as well. My grandmother helped her sisters get jobs, and she put a down payment on my aunt's home, and she babysat me when my mom was going to school and working full time. So I think about slow and steady winning the race. I think about micro scale but brave steps to solve the complexities of oppression and also racism and poverty. So I'm gonna talk about my mother now. My mom, she works at a community center. She's been there for almost 40 years. She started off as the secretary there, and then she worked her way up to being the executive director. They have food distribution there. They have a senior center. They have Narcotics Anonymous. They have a daycare. They have a garden, a community garden. They have programs for teenage girls and boys. And the list really goes on. And these programs benefit a really, really small community in White Plains, New York. But families are being fed, and people are beating addiction. Kids are going to high school and then going on to college. People are creating small businesses. And so what I know is that programs like these are feeders into a better world for all of us. And so when I think about matriarchy, I think about these really small solutions that are healing for not only communities, but healing for our world. I created this project called The Matriarchy is Coming last year. It's so funny, like I forgot that it was last year because 2020 did not exist for many of us. So I wiped 2020 out of my mind. But it was last year, and The Matriarchy is Coming. I created it based on this article that I read, and it was like at a time that was at the swell of women taking leadership roles in government and in corporations, leading all of these really great movements. And the article looked at it from this like really macro level and this big idea of people like reaching for power and climbing up ladders. And that's not how I see it at all. That's not how I see the matriarchy. I see my grandmother, I see my mother. And so with the project, what I wanted to do is highlight women that are doing like work in the communities, working to transform Baltimore specifically. And they are making some really meaningful connections here. So I wanted to get the viewpoint of women that look like me, that look like my mother, look like my grandmother, Black women that least benefit from patriarchal structures, and ask them what a world would look like that is led by Black women. And then I also asked them what gives them hope and what brings them joy. I had the women posed by trees throughout Baltimore. And the reason why I wanted to do the photo shoot by trees is because, and plant life actually, is because there's this like underground network of things happening that we really just don't know about that keeps plants strong, keep them growing, and then keeping them, having them able to weather storms. And so that's why I had the images. And I think that the images are probably scrolling through on your screen and you can see them yourself. And so I asked them the questions that I just said. What does the world look like when led by Black women? And I got some really dope answers. And I'm gonna read them for you so I don't mess them up. So one woman said, it looks like peace, pure deep love, and being one with the earth, so that we are always reminded of our grounding and our connection to our ancestors. It's not so structured, one that is moving about in ways in which we can consistently birth brilliant ideas. Another one said it looks like our non-monolithic stories being remembered, honored, and retold in their fullness. It looks like trust being the new currency for society. And then another one of the women said, it looks like an equitable future where everybody has their basic needs met, and where care is the foundation of how we lead and operate. Seeing people's full potential realized is the collective goal. So I interviewed 11 women. They are birth workers, abolitionists, connectors, artists, educators, writers, and healthcare advocates. Not all of them are mothers, but they've all mothered this idea of community. And so when I envision us moving towards matriarchal structures, I don't think of it as the antithesis to patriarchy at all, because if we view the matriarchy as the opposite of patriarchy, then we are saying that systems still benefit only one identity, one group, one norm, one religion, and that's not really how I see it at all. I don't know if you know the term neutralizing the enemy. And if not, it's like this war strategy of sorts. And the outcome is usually quite bloody. It's these two opposing groups. One is trying to kind of get rid of the other or make the other like bend the knee. I know, Game of Thrones reference. Anyways, got that? And well, anyway, so the outcome is really usually quite bloody, and there are some lethal consequences. The winner usually overpowers the losers, and the unfortunate that are left behind are either under oppressive control, forced to adopt the winner's customs, and they are, and belief systems. And we've also just seen like troops move out of the countries and just, kind of saying peace out and leaving people behind, survivors behind, without the proper resources to really live and thrive. And so when I think about this like giant word, matriarchy, I don't imagine this word neutralizing the enemy. We don't need to neutralize patriarchy. In my opinion, I think that we need to make it kind of neutral. We need to start from the beginning and start from a place that's not reactive. And imagine starting from this place where we are building with curiosity. We are leading with curiosity. We're asking questions and then moving in the direction that kind of flows like water. And water like kind of takes on whatever vessel it is in. So I see us moving towards a future that is like that. I think that there's a space for some shape shifting and adjusting. I think that we are looking to nature and our bodies as cues. And I think that we are looking at ways that we can adjust so that we are benefiting anything that's alive. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yay! Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I was nervous.
You were great.
Thank you.
You were great. Yeah, there's
Thank
so
you.
many amazing
No, yeah,
things.
there's like so many people, y'all. There's so many people in here. There's like a group of people behind the scenes, and then I have friends here cheering me on. So that's what you hear in the background, and I appreciate that energy so much.
We appreciate you. It is now time for Q&A. So I have some questions, and I'm sure you all probably have some questions too. So if you have a question, please go ahead and drop it in the chat, and then I will be able to use the technology of this iPad to pull it up on the screen, read it to Jo-Ann, and we can have a interactive Q&A. But to start, I mean, I love hearing about your grandmother and your mother, like what beautiful, empathetic, amazing souls, and I'm so lucky to hear and learn more about them. I know that when we were talking about this talk, you had mentioned a story about your mother in particular and one of her employees and some empathy that she shared.
Yeah,
Love to hear more about that.
My mom, again, she worked in a community center and the staff there. And I was actually raised through this community center. I was from daycare. I was in their daycare program, and then I was in their youth program. I did college tours, and there was a gentleman that was on staff, and he worked with the youth. And at any given time, he would just disappear, sometimes a month. One time he disappeared for a year. And what we started to kind of piece together is that he was not well. He was sick. And so what I thought was really, and I didn't understand the magnitude of this at the time, but what I did realize is that even when he disappeared, and even that long moment that he disappeared, whenever he came back, he had a job. And I think about that a lot in this term of matriarchy, because it is not only empathetic, but it is also saying that you still have a point of survival, even when and he didn't really talk about his illness, right? He didn't really talk about it. But even when people know that you're not doing well and know that you're going through a certain struggle, that there is a space for you still.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
I also wanted to ask you about, I love the project, We Are the Matriarchy, and like how you approached it and everything about it. And you had mentioned how you were asking questions of all the participants, like what does joy look like for you?
Yeah.
What does joy look like for you?
So, that's so funny, because I never even asked myself that when we were going through this project. And I think that at the time what was happening is that I was actually not able to tap into joy because it was the pandemic. And it was a struggle, right? And it was interesting at that moment. I was going through so many different transitions, and I couldn't tap into my own joy. But right now, what brings me joy? So many things. Like, I like playing with my godchildren. I like, reading a great book. I love binge watching television. I love being in community with people. Now that outside is opening up, still wear your masks. Now that outside is opening up, I love being like face to face, making eye contact again with people, reaching in and hugging, and actually somebody hugging you back. Like, that's like kind of joyous for me.
It's also making me think of, and I'd love for you to just share about it a little bit. On Wednesday when we were doing a tech run through, you had an alarm go off.
Oh, yes. So at 6:30 p.m. every evening, I have a gratitude alarm that goes off. And so it's a moment for me to stop and just be grateful for the moment. I'm supposed to say it out loud, which is really weird depending on where you are. And so if I'm like in a space with people, I'm like, I'm grateful for whatever it is that I'm grateful for the day. So I try to practice the gratitude every day. And sometimes I need a reminder. And sometimes it's also like I don't feel quite grateful. And so sometimes it's like, I'm just really grateful for this ring. Thank you for reminding me to be grateful.
I love that because, like being grateful doesn't always have to be like this big moving thing. It
Right.
can be for an item
Right.
that's bringing you joy.
I'm
and
just
that you're
like,
grateful
I'm
for.
grateful, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard. Some days are not as easy as others.
So far in the chat, you're getting a lot of flowers, but I don't, which is so lovely.
Thank you.
I can read you this one from Teresa. A beautiful story of matriarchal loving kindness, strength, and courage. We are beautiful people. Thank you for all you're doing for our world.
Thank you, Teresa.
But I do want to invite other people to join in this conversation. Have any questions you have at all for Jo-Ann? I feel like Jess has a question in the room.
Jess does have a question.
Yeah, you can say it, and I might have to repeat it just so people can hear it at home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just sitting with your vision of moving towards a world where we're curious and there's care and I'm thinking like non-linear, like all those things. Okay, we got to get there, right? It's a journey.
Yeah.
And so, and we have this conversation often about like, as someone who wants that and also has like harmed people or has been harmed, like how do we move towards that world that we want in a way that acknowledges that, but also creates some space for people to be a part of it.
All right, let me try to paraphrase
Right,
this.
that
But thank you for
Get
this
Jess
question.
a mic. Get Jess a mic.
But like, how do we get to this place, given all of the messiness that currently exists?
Yes.
I said that much
That was
less.
so great.
Oh, thank you.
That's a really great question and something that I think about a lot. And two things that Jess said was that, sometimes we are harmed and sometimes we create harm. And that is true for anyone, right? We are all just kind of like figuring it out. One of my friends a long time ago said this to me. It's like, today is the first day that I'm ever doing today. So like, I don't know how to operate in this. And sometimes we just get better and better, and we are just, more self-aware about the ways in which we interact with people and the ways that we interact with the world. And I think like pushing towards these, okay, so quick story, right?
Yeah.
So when I was doing and like preparing for this talk, I told you like I was trying to be like all educated and bookish and like academic about it, and I'm like Googling matriarchy and what it is. And there are like matrilineal societies in the world, right? In other countries, there's a matrilineal society in China and Indonesia, and Malawi has a really big community of matrilineal societies. But when they talked about matriarchy, they said it's just a hypothetical. Like matriarchy actually does not exist and probably will not exist because of all of the structures that we have in the world that is resembling white supremacy, resembling patriarchy, resembling colonization. And so this matriarchal idea is not a real thing. But I feel like everything is a hypothetical, right? All of the things that we do are hypotheticals. Like, hypothetically speaking, somebody said, you know what, this white jumper is going to look good on somebody. Let's make it, right? Anything is hypothetical. And I think that when we're moving towards a matriarchal world that is considerate of people and empathetic and a little bit more aware of our actions, I think that we then are not necessarily creating a matriarchy, because like I said, we're not trying to be patriarchal at all. We don't want to resemble patriarchy at all. I think that we are saying out loud the harm that we've done and acknowledging it and trying to heal that harm, and then telling people when you have been harmed and being completely transparent about that so that we are moving in a direction where there's healing. And that's a long, kind of windy way to get to the answer to that question, but it's something that I've struggled with. It's not something that comes natural to me at all, but I think that each one of us, like this room, hopefully has been impacted and inspired by this speech and the speeches that are happening around the world, and the things that things that people are saying about matriarchy. And yeah, that was a long,
No, that was
long
great.
answer.
I mean,
but yeah,
it was so good. I mean, you're touching on so many things. Like we all exist where there's so many systems of oppression, which you've named. And so it's very hard for the hypothetical of matriarchy, which is kind of the antithesis, even though it's not the antithetical of patriarchy, which I think is a well-noted point, but it's hard for matriarchy to truly exist when there's all these systems of oppression around us. And I love what you're saying about just recognizing that, you know, none of us are perfect people.
Right.
We've all done harm.
You know, the things that we do are a reaction to the oppression, right? We are like being products of these things and these systems that are in place to kind of keep us in line and to keep us, you know, not like, you know, overthrowing governments, or, you know, it's like we are responding and reacting. I mean, I know that a lot of people in the pandemic, like, were really hurting. And you see that in the ways that relationships have either been built up and people have been stronger, or the ways that relationships have kind of disintegrated. And so that was just kind of a birthing process that we were able to realize throughout the pandemic.
I think you're talking about so many important things. Like, you're talking a lot about how we need to have like more restorative approaches to how we...
That's the word, restorative. That's a good one, Kira.
I did not come up with it, but thank you. But yeah, I think this whole journey of learning, unlearning, approaching things with more empathy and kind of a restorative approach are all helping support the matriarchal hypothesis.
Right. Oh, yes. Good. You should do this for a living. You really should. Think about it.
So we do have a question coming in from YouTube. Can you tell us about We Are Mod and how you empower women through it?
I can, absolutely. We Are Mod, so that is a gift shop that I am running online right now at wearemod.com. But what I am trying to do is change this narrative of profits being more important than people. And I'm trying to make the creative economy more accessible to more artisans. And in doing that, I am working with a lot of women and people of color and sourcing products directly from them. And if you envision like a marketplace like an Etsy, right? And so Etsy, there's all of these like really wonderful, charming, beautiful things that people are selling on Etsy. And what I want to make room for is a marketplace where people get paid up front instead of like working really, really, really hard and competing to price people out, competing to have the best and the most brightest things. And so what I want to be able to do is get folks money so that they can survive and not really have to work so hard at survival. And the business structure right now is that being built. You know, I am getting some funding. It's not a nonprofit organization by any means, because I believe that I should be making a profit and the people that I work with should be making profits. So it's not that, but the business model does take in some grants and some funding so that I am able to do that for people. So that's what We Are Mod is, and that's kind of how like matriarchy kind of shows up in that, and learning from my grandmother and my mother.
I'm sorry I didn't ask you this earlier, so maybe this is putting you on the spot, but are you wearing anything from We Are Mod right now?
Well, I am actually.
Let's do some product placement.
Fancy that you would ask me about this ring. Yeah, so these earrings are from We Are Mod. The jewelry that I have on, yes, from We Are Mod. And these are my favorites, to be honest. These are called the Hot Girl Hoops. And they're on the site right now, and I love them because they're like hoops that stay in place and don't like twist and turn. So since we're here, wearemod.com.
What other questions do folks have? We could try to do them in the room. I feel like if if you have questions. I feel like, Henley, you had a question during the run-through. I could keep asking questions, but I want to,
Well, you mentioned a couple of ways. I don't remember what I asked in the run-through, but you mentioned a couple of ways that you practice matriarchy. But can you talk a little bit more about how you practice matriarchy in your everyday life?
So the question is, how do you practice matriarchy in your everyday life?
That wasn't the question, Henley.
Sorry.
How do I practice it in my everyday life? I think that I'm going to be honest, like I am at this point, like kind of like fumbling through the days. It is.
We all are.
Right? We're just fumbling. Like some days I'm being really super clumsy. Some days, I've got it right. I think that what I am trying to do is to be like more present. And you know what? So you guys, I don't know, viewing audience, if you live in this area, but we had like the cicadas happening, right? The big cicadas. And people were so offended by them. And I was just so fascinating. It's like every 17 years, which probably in most people's lifetime, you might get to see them 3 times. Sometime, I guess maybe 2, 3, maybe 4. How is my math? Not good. But in any case, you only see them a few times, and yeah, can they be a nuisance? But the things are just like really super blind. They can't see anything. They're trying to, get to trees and get busy, have some babies and drop some eggs and do it all over again in 17 years, right? And so when this moment was coming, I was just like really fascinating and like really being intentional about like understanding, even though when they were like hitting my windshield, when I was driving down the highway, I'm just like, all right, y'all really need to get it together. But when I was just really trying to understand that process of life, right? And it's just like, wow, nature is so cool, like super cool. And so I think that's the way that I practice it every day, is just like trying to really be in the moment and be really, really present, and also like giving empathy to all things that are alive, all things and all people, all things, plants, anything that is like living and breathing in the world.
I think that was a great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pulled it out my hat.
Yeah, wow.
Time for one more?
Yeah.
Okay. Shout it out. All right. So, really quickly, I hate when people ask me this, but because we're in this moment, I just want to know what's next for the matriarchy.
Oh, what is next for the matriarchy? What is next for me? So I'm flipping that question because I don't know what's next for the matriarchy. But for me, I would love to continue this project. The matriarchy is coming. So slide in my DMs, like at We Are Maud on social, and like let me know how we can like collaborate and talk about that, because I want more people to tell me what they envision a world led by women would look like. And it doesn't have to be Black women. Like, what does a world led by Asian women look like? What does a world led by trans women look like? What does a world look like that women living in poverty look like? I would really love to hear your answers in that. For me, We Are Maud, I am planning to reopen my storefront. I started off as a storefront, and I'm planning to reopen that store in the fall with, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I am really super excited to be back in community with people, because having an online shop was never like my intention. I like people. I like being in spaces with people. I love listening to people's stories. I find, my friends will tell you, when I'm out, I just talk to the people, all of the people. They're like, stop talking to strangers and stop making new friends. But here we are. Is it not true?
It is true. That is true.
Got some affirmations in the room.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to opening up the store again so that I can be in spaces with people.
I love it.
Thank
We all
you.
love it.
Thank
We're
you.
all like, yeah, I feel like, we have it on the screen right now, how you can follow We Are Maud, how you can get in touch with Jo-Ann, and I don't know. I feel like we all just want you to win.
Oh, that's nice. That's
It's real,
really
though.
nice.
It's really real.
That's so kind.
I
Thank
think
you.
It's really, really real.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll show you afterwards, but there's so many flowers for you in the comments.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. I
People
didn't
don't have
pay
a lot
anybody.
of questions right now. There's just a lot of flowers, which is fine.
I did not pay anybody in there.
But yeah,
Is it my mom just over and over again saying the same thing?
I don't know if your mom wrote a poem for today.
Oh, that is so funny. She did. And, Letta, can you give me my phone? Or, no, Jess, you have my phone. My mom and my aunt both wrote poems for today, which I think
this
is
is a
super
good way
cute.
to close out our Q&A.
That is so, okay, so it's gonna like take me a minute to find it. Oh, wait. My mom. Okay, so this was her first take at the when she learned that I was doing this. My mom wrote a poem, and I think that is super cute.
So cute.
And so touching. But it's her first take on it, so it's called Matriarchy is Coming. From time immortal, we've been attached to him. Woe man made us a sorry lot. Female, what a price to pay. With an E, stay quiet, please. Stand back, walk behind, know your place. We lead the homes where he's the head. We run the business, he gets the check. Stand up, rise up, listen up. The time is now. We change the language, rewrite the narrative. We are here, watch out. The matriarchy, it comes. Isn't that cute?
Oh, love it. I love it so much. Thank you again
Thank you
so much, Jo-Ann. This has been a true delight and honor to have you be a speaker.
Thank you.
So good. But let's take a moment to create a selfie moment at home. If we want to cut to the tight of Jo-Ann. If you're at home,
Tell me how I look.
you look great. Look how good you look. Look at that.
Oh, look at me.
This light,
Oh, look at me. And then none of my cowrie shells did a bungee jump. Good.
So go ahead, take a selfie with Jo-Ann right now. We'd love to see what it looks like on your end. Tag us with your selfie with Jo-Ann. We're going to take one in the room right now. I wasn't looking last month, so. Come, friends. Hey, we're taking a selfie. Hopefully you are too at home. Very good. Tag us again on social. I want you to please save the date for our next month's talk on Friday, July 30th. We'll be welcoming Terry Henderson to the virtual stage to speak on the theme of home. And so again, tag us on social. We'd love to see it. And I want to close things out with just a couple deep breaths together. It's something we've been doing the past couple times. So just 3 intentional, collective breathing. So breathe in and out and in and out. One more time. In and out. Thank you again for being here. We know that this can't replace that in-person event, but we hope you feel connected and part of this community. We'll see you next month with Terry. Go get vaxxed if you haven't.